With the current needs of the Tennessee football team, potentially in the spring transfer portal window, could Tennessee be taking a linebacker? A name is emerging out there. Let's discuss right here on a Thursday, Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it, your Thursday morning Locked On Vols. Appreciate you for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch every single morning, hopefully every single morning. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day, everydayers. Appreciate you for being here. Tell your friends. Let's get more everydayers on the show. You guys know we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Hit the subscribe button and download these episodes. Get in front of more and more Tennessee fans. All right, we got a fun show coming up here today. A linebacker name has emerged via the transfer portal. Who is it? How realistic is this? And is this the best use of priority in this portal cycle? That's coming up in a matter of a couple of seconds. Tennessee added a unsigned 2025 senior to the class for basketball, and Troy Henderson. Who is Troy Henderson, and how did that commit come about? That happened on a Tuesday afternoon, and then Josh Ward on a Thursday. Going to happen in segment number 3, getting set for Tennessee and Kentucky. A lot of Tennessee-Kentucky preview conversation coming up in segment number 3 ahead of the Sweet 16 with Josh Ward. All right, so a name is emerging as Tennessee being a potential suitor for a linebacker from Tennessee State by the name of Sanders Ellis. Sanders Ellis, again, comes from Tennessee State, where he once upon a time entered the transfer portal in December, pulled his name out to return to Tennessee State. Eddie George gets the Bowling Green job, and when that happens, that current roster can enter the transfer portal, and that's what Sanders Ellis did. He is in the transfer portal coming off a true freshman season that was really, really good for Tennessee State. He was a finalist for the Jerry Rice Award, which recognizes the top freshmen at the FCS level. He was also named the 2024 Big South OVC Football Association Defensive Freshman of the Year. Good size on him, 6'2", 225 pounds, for an inside linebacker. Finished his freshman year with 86 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections, 3 fumble recoveries, and overall he finished with 59 solo tackles as well, which is really, really impressive. So production from a second-layer player of the defense. Again, good size at 6'2", 225, and kind of did a little bit of everything for Tennessee State. Now, again, Tennessee State is a part of the FCS, which is not FBS. FBS is a level up, but you see a lot of success stories from guys that ball out at the FCS level and move up and become key contributors to, FBS programs, a lot of times Power 4, and that could be the case here that's likely going to be the case here for Sanders Ellis, regardless if he picks Tennessee or not. Auburn, Tennessee, and Virginia Tech have emerged as the teams to beat in this running, and, kind of looking over a story here from Pete Nakos over at On3. And, of course, Austin Price has mentioned this several times over at VolQuest.com when asked about the name as well. Ellis grew up in the state of Tennessee. He is from, He is from Station Camp High School, which is in the Nashville area. Went and played his freshman season at Tennessee State. So he is a Tennessee guy. I think becoming a volunteer and watching the Big Orange throughout his lifetime has been important to him. I think he is a Tennessee guy. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the perfect fit or that it's going to happen, but I think in Sanders Ellis's mind, playing for Tennessee would be really, really cool. But Auburn, of course, has very much of a need at linebacker. So does Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech lost 25 players to the transfer portal, so needing some reinforcements everywhere across the board. Auburn looking to address linebacker in the spring portal, as DeMarcus Reddick is the only linebacker that's returning from last year's linebacker room for the Tigers. Sanders Ellis is going to be a guy somewhere. What did he do in terms of Pro Football Focus? I already read out the stats over there a moment ago, but at Tennessee State University, if I said Tennessee Tech earlier, I apologize. At Tennessee State this year, he graded out Pro Football Focus with a 67.8 grade, which is, solid. It's solid for a starter. It's a couple of points away from being an above-average starter. Only 9 missed tackles on the season, which is not horrible in a 14-game season where they made the playoffs. 836 overall snaps for Tennessee State this year, which is solid. He had 8 quarterback hurries. He had 2 sacks, as I mentioned, and a lot of other things that I'm not going to have time to kind of go through here at Tennessee State. But again, a really, really productive player for Tennessee State this year, and a guy that was up for a lot of awards, prior to the end of the regular season and the playoff run there for Tennessee State. So Sanders Ellis, again, a Jerry Rice Award finalist and the Player of the Year for the Big South OVC Football Association, Defensive Freshman of the Year, Defensive Freshman of the Year. Would this be a good get for the Tennessee Volunteers? That's the question that I kind of want to present to you here, and I know I waited 5 minutes to get into it, but I wanted to kind of give you some background on who this player is. He's a take from conversations I had with people, that are in the know in terms of, Tennessee's pursuit and Tennessee's engagement with the player. I think he's a take for Tennessee. I do think Tennessee would take him. Now, will Tennessee break the bank in terms of name, image, and likeness opportunities? Will Tennessee allocate tons and tons of resources to go and get Sanders Ellis? I don't think that's the case, at least right now. You know how things change all the time. I don't think that's the case. Would Tennessee take him? Would Tennessee give him a scholarship? Absolutely. What does Ellis want in his recruitment? Is he looking for immediate playing time? That's not guaranteed at Tennessee. Is he looking to cash in with NIL opportunities? That would not be a guarantee at Tennessee. Is he okay with coming in, competing for a rotation spot and for nothing guaranteed in terms of NIL resources? Then maybe this is the spot. But you look at Tennessee in the linebacker room, Jeremiah Thielander returns, Arian Carter returns, Edwin Spillman returns, Jordan Burns getting a lot of work this spring after missing a lot last year with injury, and the staff likes him a lot. So that's 4 right there. You're bringing in some freshmen, albeit they've been beat up a little bit, but Christian Gass is kind of a floater edge linebacker, but he's the name in this conversation. Jaden Harmon, who's been banged up and hasn't really done much this spring. Perlotti from the former UCLA and USC commits, who ended up in Tennessee's signing class, Jaden Perlotti. He's also in this conversation. He's got a lot of high upside, but he's been banged up this spring. So Tennessee's kind of got some numbers. Tennessee's got a lot of talent at the linebacker position. So there's not necessarily... Oh, and Brendan Ains as well, in-state prospect, played for Page High School, former Wisconsin commit, but he ended up in this class. So Tennessee's got a lot of talent. Tennessee's got the numbers at linebacker. So the priority is not high to add a linebacker. Tennessee very much needs a defensive tackle. Tennessee could end up taking another wide receiver. Tennessee could end up taking another cornerback. Spring practice will kind of tell us the tale on what the exact needs are when these 15 practices are over. Tennessee will scrimmage for the first time behind closed doors on Monday night, and that'll be kind of the first test to say, okay, now where are we? Which freshmen have stepped up? Which depth pieces do we feel good about? Which depth pieces do we not feel good about, meaning we need to go out and get a guy? We're going to have some of those answers maybe even Monday night, but certainly as spring goes along. But I don't think linebacker is high on that priority. Again, defensive tackle is probably way up there in terms of the defensive side of the football and corner. So would Tennessee like to have Sanders Ellis? Sure. I think Tennessee would take him. Is Tennessee going to move mountains to make that happen? I don't think so. But this is one to pay attention to, in my opinion. He very well could end up at Tennessee in this transfer portal window, the spring window. That's not officially open, but again, Sanders Ellis is in there because his head coach, Eddie George, left for the Bowling Green job. And teams like Tennessee, along with Virginia Tech and Auburn, are showing some big-time interest. What say you? Should Tennessee even entertain bringing in a linebacker, or do you think Tennessee's kind of playing this the right way? Again, from everything I've been told at the time of this recording, would take him, like him, but linebacker's way down there on the pecking order right now in terms of needs that need to be addressed potentially in the spring transfer portal window. That's something interesting to talk about and something to track over the next couple of days, but a very productive in-state linebacker, essentially, not just from Tennessee State, but also from the Nashville area. Sanders Ellis. Tennessee is emerging as being one of the 3 teams to beat in that conversation right now after playing 836 snaps to the true freshman and being up for a couple of awards. Very, very productive season there right out of high school, where he was recruited as an edge, but ended up playing on the inside. And I think that's a good move there for him long-term in Sanders Ellis. Okay, Tennessee basketball picked up a commit, not via the transfer portal, via the high school ranks, a late commit in Troy Henderson. Who is Troy Henderson? How did he become a part of Tennessee's class? And what's his long-term projection with the Volunteers? That's coming up next as we continue on with the Thursday Locked On Vols. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. We've all been there. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing money. There you go. You stop just managing money. You start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending online shopping, and I was able to budget smarter and save more money. And instead of juggling multiple apps, I can use Monarch to check my finances, track my spending, even plan my long-term goals. Plus, me and the wife is smoother than ever managing our finances. Shared accounts, we can set goals, stay on the same page without any stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Again, all that and more at monarchmoney.com. March Madness is still going on right now. Of course, you know it. Tennessee and Kentucky round 3 in the Sweet 16 on Friday night in Indianapolis. Can't wait for that showdown. Will Tennessee fall 3 times to its basketball rival in one season? I don't think so. But what needs to be different for Tennessee to win this game after Kentucky swept the 2 games in the regular season? That's coming up next. I'll ask Josh Ward, a part of Ward Wednesday on a Thursday this week, coming up in segment number 3. But on that basketball topic here, Tennessee added a commit from the high school ranks in point guard Troy Henderson. Troy Henderson has committed to Tennessee in this recruiting class. Who is he? Well, he's a 6-foot point guard from Richmond, Virginia, where he attends John Marshall High School. He attended John Marshall High School this past season. Now, he spent 2 years at Lancaster High School prior to transferring to John Marshall, where he was a 2-time VHSL Class 1A State Player of the Year, and where he won 2 state titles as well. So a very productive player in terms of winning and prestige in the Virginia high school ranks. He originally committed to Fordham, signed with Fordham, but was released of his letter of intent after the Rams made a coaching change this offseason, following this past year. So once that happens, just like we talked about Sanders Ellis there, he wasn't necessarily in that recruiting class, but like the transfer portal window opened for that roster. Well, if you sign with a team that made a head coaching change, you can be let out of your national letter of intent if you want to. And that's kind of what happened there. More on Henderson from the high school ranks. He scored more than 1,800 points in 3 years at Lancaster. That was a school record. As a junior in 23 to 2024, he averaged 25.9 points per game to goal line, 5 rebounds per game, 4.7 assists, 3.1 steals per game. So again, you guys know I like to call those type of players a stat sheet stuffer. No doubt about it. He's got tight hand. This is from Rob Lewis's impact analysis over at volquest.com. He has tight handle, sound body control that he uses to penetrate and find creases more than just take your breath away quickness. He's got solid pull-up game, but is mostly looking to make plays for others in the paint right now. Outside of his playmaking, Henderson's most attractive attribute at the next level right now probably would be perimeter shooting. He's not a score-first point guard by nature, but he did play with Team Loaded in the AAU circuits, in travel circuit basketball, Team Loaded this past summer, where he played alongside 5-star Nate Ahmet, who, of course, Tennessee was very interested in. I think that ship has sailed, but he played alongside that 5-star talent. That gave Henderson plenty of opportunities to hunt his offense down while defenses focused on the 5-star. It opened things up for him. It's one of those beautiful things, and we hear about it all the time in recruiting. You go to a game to watch this guy, and you notice this guy. That's why, playing on good teams benefits everybody, because there's more eyeballs on the game. You're watching who you're there to be scouting. You're like, well, this guy just keeps showing up. This guy keeps showing up. And that's kind of what happened with Rick Barnes when he went and scouted team loaded this summer. Of course, I don't know necessarily if he was going there and if he had eyes on Henderson to begin with, but obviously was going there to watch, 5-star Nate Amat. And, Tennessee was very much in that recruitment. But Henderson kept showing up. And Rick Barnes and Henderson spoke with, VolQuest Austin Price. It's over there on the site, and it's a really, really good story. He kept following him around from game to game, from court to court. And there was one loose ball where the ball went to Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes caught it, and Troy kind of came over there, and Barnes said, "You would look good in orange." And that's something that was just like a passing comment during a game. And then that's something that they kind of bonded over when he was in town for a visit this past weekend, late Sunday night on into Monday. And so that's kind of how that relationship started to break ground and kind of grow from there. Again, I think Tennessee was aware of him, liked him coming out of high school. He signed with Fordham, but again, got out of his national letter of intent. Has been an unsigned 2025 prospect at this time, and has now committed to Tennessee. He's joining a class with Amari Evans and Dwayne Brown, and none of those three probably are going to have to be pressed into action immediately next year, but still, you look at a roster, and this is the same thing every year. Now, very rarely do you not have a lot of turnover on your basketball roster from one year to the next. That's just kind of the nature of where we are in the transfer portal, where you are in NIL opportunities. That's kind of where we are as college athletics overall, but you see it more in basketball because the roster's so much smaller than that of baseball and, of course, football. So you've got the 3 incoming freshmen now, as Troy Henderson is added to that class. Tennessee pretty much played with 9 scholarship players this year because J.P. Estrella was out with a foot injury. But if all these guys come back, and that's never a guarantee, you'll have Estrella, Felix Okpara, Cade Phillips, got a lot of front court presence, and then Bishop Boswell. So you add that 4 to the 3 incoming freshmen. That gives Tennessee a 7-man roster for right now, and we know that Tennessee is going to be very active in the transfer portal this offseason because that's just kind of what he did. For everybody that says, "Oh, Rick Barnes doesn't like this era of basketball. Rick Barnes doesn't like to do this. Rick Barnes is going to retire." I don't know what Rick Barnes is going to do, but I have a feeling Rick Barnes is going to be Tennessee's coach next year, in my opinion. And certainly I think that he loves that process at the end of the season in assembling his roster, going and getting proven grown men to come in and, assemble into the Tennessee way of things, and then getting to work over the summer. Getting to work in the fall, and then trying to hit that home stretch towards the back half of SEC play on into postseason action, the SEC tournament and the NCAA tournament. Tennessee's certainly following that script right now on into the Sweet 16. So Troy Henderson, will he be a dude for Tennessee next year? I don't know. We'll see. But I think this is the guy that Tennessee liked, Tennessee coveted, and it's a guy that plays very unselfish basketball, trying to get others involved and then trying to up his game as a perimeter shooter in the process. Troy Henderson from Virginia, 6-foot point guard, from John Marshall High School right now. Again, prior to transferring to John Marshall High School, in 3 years, scored over 1,800 points for Lancaster. That was a school record, and played with Team Loaded this past summer, where really Tennessee kind of got notice of him with alongside 5-star prospect Nate Amet. And and then the rest is history, right? Tennessee basketball got better off the court yesterday. What does Tennessee basketball need to do to get better on the court, specifically against Kentucky? We all know Kentucky's beaten Tennessee twice already this year. Round number 3 is coming up on Friday in the Sweet 16. What needs to be different, if anything at all, for Tennessee? I'm going to ask Josh Ward on Award Wednesday, Thursday edition, as we continue right here on this Thursday Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. We're all about the stats here on Locked On Vols because the numbers don't lie. And when it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Whether you're exploring off-road trails or rolling up to the arena, the Armada Pro 4X brings power, versatility, and style wherever you go. Take your adventures to new heights with the new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. You can learn more about the Nissan Armada Pro 4X and so many more at nissanusa.com. That is nissanusa.com.
The NCAA Tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA Tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Josh Ward joining us for the final segment here on a Wednesday show. Actually, it's going to be a Thursday show because yesterday we had a busy day with football in the morning. But nonetheless, Tennessee and Kentucky in the Sweet 16. Josh, what's going to be different? How can Tennessee make this round 3, different than the previous 2 matchups in the regular season when Kentucky was victorious?
Well, the most recent game, Chaz Lanier had a bad shooting night. He was 0 of 7 from 3. I don't think we'll see that again from Chaz. He's played really well recently. And it's not just shots going in. It's the way that he's playing, the way that he's attacking with the basketball at times. And I think that that's going to continue with Chaz. He's in the right mindset with what Tennessee needs. Zakai Ziegler is playing so well, and he is doing it in all aspects of the game, on both ends of the floor. And we know that Zakai's capable of that. He's had big moments. He's had big games, but he's playing terrific 40 minutes of basketball here recently. And I think Tennessee will continue to rebound the basketball well. The other thing that can't continue is Kentucky hitting shots the way that it did in the previous 2 games. Is Kentucky capable of hitting 50% of its threes? Of course, we've seen it happen. But Tennessee will defend and have a plan ready to try to slow down what Kentucky was able to do shooting from the outside the previous 2 games.
Pretty successful year already. Year number 1 for Mark Pope at Kentucky, onto the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2019. Kentucky fans got to love Cal and how he got the Hogs of the Sweet 16 this year. Nonetheless, what is different about Kentucky here later in the season than maybe during the regular season? Injuries throughout, but Kentucky, it looks like they sharpened some things on defense, at least the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they got better as SEC play went along, I think, on the defensive end of the floor. It's an older team than we've seen the previous few years, where John Calipari's teams were relying on young players who maybe weren't ready for the moment. Reed Sheppard was a terrific player. He was an early draft pick in the NBA. He was awful in the NCAA tournament last year against Oakland. They have veteran guards. Lamont Butler is a player who has gone to a national championship game at San Diego State. He stepped up and hit big shots. He's a really good defender. When you come back to that end of the floor, he was Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year at San Diego State. So they have guys that understand what it takes at this time of year. It's a new collection of players that came together during the offseason, but that's college basketball now. That is what every team is in most cases, is players coming from the outside to build a new team. And it's clicked, and Kentucky can win this game. I think that's obvious going in, that Kentucky can win it. I do like Tennessee going in. I do think Tennessee was the better team all season long, just not in those 2 matchups against Kentucky, and will be better on Friday. But Tennessee has to take Kentucky seriously, and there's no reason that won't happen. So I think if Tennessee plays as well as it's capable of and shoots better than we saw in the previous 2 games, then Tennessee will be better than Kentucky.
What do you make of Lamont Butler's comments? It was an extended quote. Context is key. I continue to say that. But at the end of that quote, he said, "We're going to win this game." Can't not just ignore that. What do you make of his comment there, saying we're going to win this game? That being Kentucky.
Yeah, I was surprised that Lamont said that matter-of-factly, but it was at the end of a comment talking about his team and how they have older guys who understand what it takes to succeed and how important coming together as a team was over the course of this season, and the results back up what he said. When he said it, to him, I don't think it was a big deal. He spoke confidently, and he should be confident for reasons we've laid out. But also on Tennessee's side, they're not going to just sit there and listen to the full quote. If you're a coach, if you're somebody around those players, you just read the one sentence, and that is, we're going to win that game. And I think it's obvious that you don't need extra motivation at this stage, but as we always say, you take any motivation you can get. So I'm sure Tennessee players are aware of what Lamont Butler said, and they know he's a good player. He's an important player who's he's not been full go in these matchups. So this is probably one that Lamont is very excited about, having missed time. And the previous game, that was maybe the biggest surprise to me, that he had to exit and Kentucky was able to play controlled basketball down the stretch. But He played more than 30 minutes in the previous game. He can defend. He can hit outside shots. Butler's a really important player for them. He can kind of help push how they go, but so does Zakai Ziegler on the other side. And if you've watched Chaz Lanier, the way that he's playing, watch Jordan Gainey and the confidence he plays with. They'll have plenty of confidence on their side too.
You mentioned how this is probably a game that Butler wants to get up for. What about Chaz Lanier? He did not play well the previous meeting, just really didn't play well at all. And this is, Kentucky was one of his finalists. It was Tennessee, BYU, or Kentucky. Obviously, you want to play well every single game out there, but do you think there's any extra motivation for a guy like Chaz Lanier here in this round of the Sweet 16 against Kentucky, a team that he very much considered, and a team that he just played awful against the last time out?
Yeah, I'm sure it is an extra motivation. It's something to add to the list. The list is pretty easy to come up with. One, you want to get to the Elite Eight, keep going for a Final Four, and trying to win a national championship. Chaz has also just played so well recently, the last few weeks. I think he really took to the coaching that he received, and he came out on fire and then went through either a slump or had some up and down games, which happens to most players. And the Kentucky game was maybe the worst game. It was the worst shooting performance. He went 0 for 7 from 3. And since then, he's been terrific overall. We talked on the show after that game, not long after it, about how important he still was, how good his season had been overall, but Chaz kind of being the X factor for what the Volunteers do offensively. Well, here we are with Tennessee getting ready to play Kentucky again. On the flip side, I'm sure Chaz and Zakai Ziegler, Jahmai Mashak, the seniors, they don't want to see their run end against Kentucky. They don't want to go 0-3 against Kentucky. So for Chaz Lanier, getting Kentucky back for what happened in the regular season, but also continuing the run and not allowing Kentucky to end it for Tennessee is part of the motivation.
Tennessee has 2 National Defensive Player of the Year nominees. Of course, Zakai Ziegler, that's expected. Jahmai Mashak, also one of the 5 included in there. You surprised Tennessee has 2 of the, 4 or 5? 4.
2 of the 4, yeah.
4. So, you got to like the odds that Tennessee's going to be, the program at least is going to be represented potentially as the winner of that.
No surprise with those 2 players being finalists. The only surprise would be it's difficult for one school to have half of the finalists, but Tennessee does, and they deserve it. To me, it's difficult to choose one or the other because they're both elite. They're both deserving of all the recognition that they receive. Zakai is a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the SEC, and this year the SEC was widely regarded as the best conference. But Jahmai Mashak is so important for what Tennessee does defensively. Some of it shows up in the stats, some of it does not, as we have discussed over and over again at this point with Jahmai Mashak. And I think he's deserving of National Defensive Player of the Year. And that's not to take away from Zakai. If Zakai wins it, there's not much of an argument against him. That's what's funny about this conversation. 2 teammates who both mean so much. After the LSU game, when Tennessee won, Matt McMahon, the coach there, was talking about they're like 2 shutdown corners with what Tennessee has defending on the perimeter. And that's a big reason why Tennessee's in this position. But I think Jahmai Mashak is deserving of it. We've seen some publication support there. The Field of 68 gave Jahmai their National Defensive Player of the Year recognition here in the last few weeks. And I think Jahmai is worthy of it on the national stage as an award.
Josh, last thing, are we going to see more of that 1-2-2 full court trap that Tennessee went into there right before halftime that really sparked an 8-0 run over that last 2:51 of the half, and I think changed the game? They talked post-game about how, of course they've had it. They don't always use it, but they threw it out there, and obviously it worked. And I think that could be in the back pocket here for this game against Kentucky.
Yeah, it's something to watch, which Kentucky has now watched, I'm sure, on film to prepare going into this game. And Butler would be an important player in this conversation. What Kentucky does with Amari Williams, a big man who can help run things for them offensively with the ball in his hands, would Tennessee try to pressure there? But we talked to Ron Slay on the show this week, and he was talking about Williams, if he's able to score, that's okay because he likes to help make plays for the offense for others as well. But it's something that we could see Tennessee throw in the middle of the game as they did late in the first half, and it was just it worked to perfection for what Tennessee wanted to do against UCLA. Kentucky will be ready for it, prepared for it, but if Tennessee throws it at the Wildcats, let's see how they handle it. It's something that Tennessee could try to use for a couple of minutes or to change things up in the middle of the game. It worked previously, and it would be understandable if Tennessee tries to go for it again. Kentucky, let's see how they manage things, but forcing turnovers, not allowing easy baskets, easy looks on the outside, that'll be a big focus for what Tennessee's trying to do defensively.
That is Josh Ward. We had a segment every Wednesday called Ward Wednesday. It's on a Thursday this week, but it's all the same. Josh, co-host of 99.1 The Sports Animals, Josh and Swain with VFL Jason Swain. Today, Thursday, tomorrow, Friday. Game is Friday night. Potentially an Elite Eight game could be on Sunday. What do you guys got coming up the last 2 days of the show this week?
Yeah, I mentioned that sleigh ride if you want to go back and check it out. Tuesday during the 1 o'clock hour, our second hour of the show, worth of podcast listen. We'll have all kinds of basketball talk, plenty of football with the team getting back to spring practice this week as well. So, yeah, what's going on with the basketball team is probably the 1A. Then you have football, baseball continues on. So we have a ton, plus the newsletter Friday morning, free to subscribe.
And that link is in the show notes of this episode. Josh, as always, man, thanks so much.
Thanks, Eric.
That is Josh Ward, co-host of Josh and Swain on 99.1 The Sports Animal. All right, fun show, good ending to the show. Josh, a lot of great perspective on Tennessee's matchup with Kentucky in the Sweet 16. Tomorrow is Thursday. Tomorrow is Thursday. The next day is Friday, and then, hey, it is game time, and we'll see what transpires. Round 3, Tennessee and Kentucky in the Sweet 16. Appreciate you guys for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. We'll be back at it tomorrow. More notes on Tennessee football spring practice, more preview action for Tennessee, Kentucky, all that and more right here on Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys.